Hello, thank you so much for coming to this workshop. It's going to be a fun half an hour and 45 minutes, I hope. But yeah, I'm guessing all of you are here because you are trying to figure out what to do with your careers. So I really hope that this workshop is going to be helpful for you. It was originally meant to be me and JD doing it together, but of course, JD is in DC now, so it's just going to be me. But let's just start. So just to kind of start and, for you guys to know why I'm here and how I figured out my career, I guess. I still haven't figured out my career, but I'm here. The way I started, I had a few secular jobs, but I had I didn't have any meaning and purpose in any of them, to be honest. And I always felt very confused and frustrated and scared that I just was never going to find like the thing that I really wanted to do, the thing that God had for me. And of course, now I'm actually doing my dream job at CFI. Like a few weeks ago, I actually testified at church about the fact that God literally provided this for me, and I feel like I'm like living in what I always wanted, but never knew how to get there. And of course, now I feel very hopeful. I feel excited, and I feel purpose-driven. I feel like I'm actually doing something that has a meaning, has impact. But how did I actually get there? So I'm really saying this to kind of inspire you, to encourage you. But the way I first got here is when CFI was being launched, JD essentially asked on like this Facebook group that we have, if anyone could give feedback for the website that was being created, for the CFI website. So it was before it was even launched. And at this point, I was working in one of my secular jobs as a user researcher. So every day I was actually like testing websites, giving feedback, talking to people about it, seeing what can be improved, what can be done better. Hi guys. And so I offered to JD, I was like, hey, why don't we, do a research project for the CFI website before it gets launched to make sure that is as good as it can be, before it goes live into the world. And so we did that. He was really happy with the idea. Basically, I found 12 people to interview. We had incentives for them. And then I basically interviewed them. I put together this whole research project, and feedback. And he was very happy with that. And, a few months later, after the website was launched, with the recommendations that I provided for him for free, he said that he needed someone to do the marketing for CFI because we had no newsletter, we had no Instagram, we didn't have any social media presence at all. And he thought I would be the best person for it. At first, I was like, I don't think I can do this because I had no marketing experience whatsoever. I knew about, digital optimization, but I didn't really know anything about marketing. And so I kind of said no at first, but then I was like, okay, no, let me actually try. And so he gave me a chance to do a trial and to see how it goes. I did that. And then long story short, here I am. So one thing that I would recommend is just to actually go and take opportunities when they present themselves to you, because you never know where you could end up a year from now. But another thing that really helped me was just praying and surrendering my career to God, because I was at a point where I was always trying to be okay, should I quit my job and just try something new? I was always trying to leave because I was never really happy where I was. And when I actually just said to God, all right, Lord, I'm going to stay where you have placed me for the time being until you provide the next thing. And I actually did that. And when I did that, all the doors opened. So I would say prayer and surrender definitely helped me. And the foundation of it all is this verse, which I try to live by. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. So when I actually changed my perspective to finding a job that I really like, that has impact, but just to I just want to seek God's kingdom, and I just want to see his kingdom here, and I want for God to use me in whatever way he pleases, and not seek my own pleasure or my own enjoyment, but actually what would glorify him the most. Then I found that all these other things were given to me as well. So that's kind of how I got here. And as we already kind of mentioned, the average career is 80,000 hours. So this is one of the things, I guess, that like really scared me at the beginning, because I was like, I don't want to spend my career 80,000 hours. I mean, this is just what 1,000 hours look like. I don't want to spend 80,000 hours doing something that literally doesn't have any meaning and purpose. This is why I was always fretting about what I was actually doing with my life. And yeah, I guess just for you guys, you're already in groups, which is great, but I would love, this is a workshop. It's not just going to be me talking. It's going to be you guys also doing some things. But I guess just talk to the person or people next to you or in your group. How do you feel with where your career is at now? And where would you ideally be in 5 years if you could do anything you wanted? I'll just give you like 3 minutes to discuss that in your groups. And just feel free to be as honest as possible. This is a very like open space. And yeah, we can talk about more things later, but feel free to discuss.
Currently, I'm working in scientific research. So I'm doing a PhD. Currently working in London. And actually, this is happening. So we work in something a bit more client so anything consistent. I'd like to be working on like not just the immune system generally, but specific disease, like research, vaccination, treatment. So I'd say like if all goes well with this job, get back to yeah, I just don't know
Do you guys have like papers? Just like, oh yes, and pens. More pens? I need like. Are there any pens?
So, the future it would be best if you could fill out your network.
Yeah, it's in there. Yeah. You can sit down wherever you want. I'm just going to.
Thank you very much.
career plan.
What do you
I
want?
was going to try and jump into the EA one.
Oh yeah.
Is it Arnold, which I think I can go through here for, can't I?
You can also go through here.
Am I going in via that? Is this?
Yes, sorry. Okay. If we could come back to hi. Yeah. 30 seconds. I'll give you 30 more seconds. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry, guys, that I have to cut your conversation short. But there's lunch after this, and I'm sure you guys want to get to lunch because we are hungry. But yeah, I hope you've had some good conversations. I would love to know where you guys are in your career, maybe at lunch if you want to chat to me. But just to kind of give you a bit of a... Why is it not working? Okay, here. What we actually do at Christians for Impact. I don't know how familiar everyone is with Christians for Impact, but to kind of get everyone on the same page, what we do is we attract talented Christians looking to impact a key global problem. It's not coming up very clearly, but if you go on our website, we have 8 global problems that we focus on, that we really would love to encourage more people to go into and try and solve with their careers. Let me just close this door. Yeah. We provide biblical, impactful advice for your career journey. So we have a podcast that you can listen to. It's basically conversations between JD and Christian experts in loads of different fields, talking about what is their advice of how to get into that field and what is the problem, how can you impact it in the best way possible. We also have a blog. We also have a newsletter. We have a lot of things, and you will see dotted around the main room, there's like a QR code. If you follow that, it goes to our link tree, and that's where you can find all of our free resources. And I really recommend to get onto that, because that's where you can get everything that we provide. But we also organize one-to-one impact mentorship. This sounds more serious than it actually is. All it is literally a 60-minute call with a Christian expert in a field that you are interested in. So it isn't like a long-term commitment. It isn't something that you have to commit to for like 6 months. It's literally just you fill out a short application form on our website. You say what you're interested in, what do you want to work in, and you basically get matched to someone who has the relevant expertise, knowledge, and advice to have a call with you and kind of just give you like some sort of direction. So it's really just basically like an informal call where you can get some guidance. So I would really recommend you guys to do that. But to kind of, why are we even like doing this? I'm sure you kind of are here because you believe that, you know, God, and through all of Scripture, we see that God has an impact vision for the world. We see, for example, that he really cares about justice for the poor. There are over 2,000 Bible verses that talk about caring for the poor. You know, even in Proverbs 31, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly, defend the rights of the poor and needy. And this is just one of literally thousands. We also see faith in God as a big, obviously, probably the most important thing that God cares about, for everyone to know him, for everyone to know the hope of Jesus Christ. And so supporting mission efforts, to support the spirit of faith and the opportunity for eternal life. This is also one of the key problems that we focus on. And, you know, going and making disciples, that's something that we've all been commissioned to do, regardless of, you know, what our career is. And peace on earth, working to prevent conflict and violence is central to God's desire for peace among humanity. If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. So you'll see that one of our problems is nuclear security and politics and policy. So that is really all based on promoting peace on earth. And of course, flourishing of creation. I strongly believe that, you know, God cares about every creature that he has created on this earth. So caring for animals and addressing climate change also reflects God's concern for all creation. Everything that God made was good at the beginning, but of course we went and messed it up a bit. But yeah, that's kind of like a short intro to CFI, why we do, what we believe in. But this workshop is really to map your 5-year career trajectory. So this is essentially the career model that we encourage people to follow. This isn't like, oh, you have to figure out your problem first and then intervention. You can really kind of find yourself at any of these points. But this is kind of how we think about it. Starting with, what is the problem that you really care about? What is the most effective intervention to tackle that problem? And what roles, resources, skills, and experiences do you need in order to actually do that effectively? So, example, this is Liz Hickson, and we have a podcast with her. Really recommend you to watch it. Her problem that she focuses on is child mortality. The way that she wants to tackle this problem is through vaccine incentives. She is working for New Incentives, this very, very impactful organization called New Incentives, and essentially they basically incentivize their parents in very poor countries in Africa to vaccinate their children. And this really, really decreases child mortality. So essentially this saves like thousands of lives a year, essentially. And the way she's doing that is through a senior communication role. So, she's not the one like actually vaccinating people, but she's the one promoting this intervention and this charity to people who are able to donate, to fund it, to, build traction for this problem. And, the skills that she might need for this: websites, fundraising, public speaking, any degrees that she might have. And the way she would get these is through internships, diverse roles across different organizations. So does that kind of make sense, like how we think about this? Yeah. So to kind of get onto this, this workshop, we can actually go through this problem, practical career model yourselves, and you can see how you can maybe start to create that 5-year career plan. We're probably not gonna, figure out your career in this workshop, but I hope this gives you a way to go about it in your own time. So first, what is your problem? The way that we figure out what is the most important problem to actually focus on is through the ITN framework. This stands for importance, tractability, and neglectedness. So importance essentially means scale times the severity of the problem. So obviously if something impacts more people, more animals, it is going to be more important because just of the scale that it is impacting. Tractability is essentially how if you actually started to work in it, would you be able to make a dent in it? And neglectedness, the number of people working on it and the resources allocated to it. So just to kind of give an example of how you would go about this. So let's say we have this species of a bird that is about to be extinct. So the way we would categorize this, importance, we would say it is pretty low. This is relative to other problems, by the way. So biodiversity is important, but this is just one species in one part of the world. Tractability is pretty high. There's local conservation campaigns that are quite effective, and it gets loads of public support. So it's quite solvable. The neglectedness, though, is very low because it is, not everyone focuses on this, but there's already like tens of millions of dollars being spent on this. So it's not neglected. Like you adding more money to this problem will not actually make that much of a difference. So that's kind of how we think about that. But let's talk about factory farmed chickens. The importance of it is really, really high. Like there are over 1 billion, like we can't even comprehend that, but there's 1 billion hens living in battery cages, and they are often experiencing disabling pain. They are living in conditions that they were not made to live for, that God did not create them to live for. the tractability is actually really high. It's very solvable. As a result of every dollar put into corporate egg campaigns, hens spend 9 fewer years in cages. So for every $1 that you give to a really effective charity focusing on this issue, you can, help prevent a hen spending like 9 more years in a cage. So it's very, very solvable. And the neglectedness is very high. As you can probably tell, not many people care about factory farmed animals because, of course, we eat them, we see them as food, but so that makes it very neglected because there's very few people actually working on this and actually caring to solve this issue. And almost no funding goes towards factory farmed animals, which is just 3.5% of all funding that goes to animals, even though there's so many people, animals affected by it. So I hope that gives you kind of like this is another one that we could talk about, but that is essentially how we compare between different problems and what we should be focusing on based on these 3 factors. So if we were to like put it in like a table to actually objectively say, okay, which ones of these are actually more important to work on, this is how we could go about it. And then from this, you can see that we would probably want to focus more on factory farming and climate change. If what you really cared about was having loads of impact and making a dent in a really big problem, then this is how you would do that. These are the problems that we have on our website. We have basically expert research conducted on each one of these problems that says what the scale of the problem is, how neglected it is, what are the most effective interventions that you could actually work on to help make a dent in these problems. So spiritual darkness, which is just the fact that it's not just over 1 billion. I think it's like 2.2 billion don't actually know who Jesus is. They've never heard. The unreached people groups is how we would call that. Extreme poverty, preventable disease, so diseases that are just very easy to actually prevent or treat that are just not being treated or prevented right now. Animal cruelty, so like the hens example I gave. Pandemics, so of course we've all been through the COVID-19, so if there was another one of those, it could literally wipe out like millions of people. Climate change, which again, mostly affects the poorest and who actually don't actually contribute that much to climate change, but they are the most affected by it. Nuclear war and policy. So policy actually kind of, if you work in policy, you could have an impact in any of these problems depending on what area of policy you work in. So these are the problems that we focus on, that we can provide mentorship on and advice on. I just want to give a little note on calling. So we do know that in the Bible, God sometimes supernaturally calls people. So I put here like a burning bush. It's not, you can't really see the bush, but it's like a fire. When God called Moses to go and deliver the people from Egypt. We definitely agree that sometimes God can call someone very supernaturally to go and do something that maybe might not seem the most impactful thing to do, but is what God has for that person to do. And we think that if that happens to you, you should wholeheartedly go and follow that call. But for most of us, me included, God did not speak to me in a burning bush and tell me you should go and do this. And if he did, I would 100% obey. But in the absence of such a supernatural experience, what we can do instead is follow what the Bible says, and also what evidence says about what actually are the most important problems in the world that we could actually tackle in this lifetime. So I just wanted to give that little note. But I would love for you guys to try doing this ITN problem framework comparison yourself for the next 5 minutes. I've given here some problems that you could map onto this into this table. So poverty in the US, extreme poverty, which usually is not in a Western world, US healthcare reform, global health, which encompasses preventable and treatable diseases, climate change, immigration reform, factory farming, criminal justice reform, and missions and evangelism. I would love for you guys just to spend 5 minutes, write down this table and just pick 3 spaces that maybe you feel more inclined towards to work on, and see out of those three which ones seem like it would be the most impactful to work on based on these three factors. Yeah, I'll give you 5 minutes. I'll tell you when there's like 1 minute left. So we're just going to kind of discuss. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, actually, if anyone wants to share. What one or two problems do you find most important and tractable and neglected? And how does this fit in with your sense of calling, or doesn't fit in with your sense of calling? I'd love if someone could share. If you have an answer. Yeah?
So I focused on the global poverty one and the climate change ones, both of which I think are pretty high across the board. In terms of my second question, I currently work in the climate space, but I feel my calling is more in the global poverty space.
Oh, interesting. And do you mind kind of sharing like how you feel, like what makes you kind of more drawn towards global poverty in terms global health, global poverty? Yeah.
I think just experience, like I lived in India for a while growing up, and that was just such a India-based
Yeah.
thing, so that stirred me up about that in particular. But part of me thinks like if I went to a place where climate change was socialism, I should probably feel quite similar on climate change. So.
Right. So you're like trying to like figure out which one is most, yeah. Anyone else wants to share about this question? Not all at once. Would you like to think? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, what are my thoughts? I also was kind of looking at global poverty, and so I think because of the scale of the problem, even though the potential impacts would be high, and it's maybe not that neglected, I think specifically working out what particular interventions you are offering is more difficult because there's so much that actually has been done that's been really ineffective. So it's like, okay, it's important, it's tractable, it's not very neglected, but still how do you have an impact on that?
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I was having a conversation. What's your name? Sorry? Tom. Yeah, I was having a conversation with Tom about that exact thing. And we were saying how, yeah, you could work in a really important, tractable, neglected area, but if you kind of choose the wrong intervention, then you're not really doing much. So it's very important about choosing the right interventions, which is what we're going to get into now. Wow, that worked really well. So interventions. So the next step, if you were to like really sit down and plan out your career, is to identify the most promising interventions in that problem that you actually want to work in. Because it's great working on something that is like super important, but not doing the right thing. It's not that great. So hi, it's okay. So to give you a little quiz, which intervention does the most to improve education outcomes in a poor country in Africa? A, providing free school uniforms. B, giving cash to families who send their daughters to school. C, awarding merit-based scholarships for girls. Or D, telling parents how much more their children are likely to earn in the future if they do stay in school. Anyone for A? Just put your hands up. Yeah, couple hands. Giving cash to families. Okay, most of you. C, awarding merit-based scholarships. No one for that. And then telling parents how much more. Yeah, I feel like I know it. So just for these three, the first three, so free uniform, much better than cash incentives and scholarships. But actually, when compared to giving parents information about how much more their children could earn if they stay in school, this intervention completely trumps all of the other three, which is crazy, and it's not something that we would have thought about. Like most of you said, I think cash incentives. So this is you wouldn't know this if you hadn't actually, like, I guess, researched it. But this is pretty shocking to me as well. But this is literally the case with so many charities. There are probably like millions of charities in the world, but some charities are literally, like, I'm not just saying this as a like random number, but they have 100 times more impact than other charities. And so choosing what charity to donate to and choosing what charity to support by working in it, volunteering, that can massively increase the amount of impact that you can have. And you can, if you choose the right charity and the right intervention in the right problem, then that your impact can be basically like, really much, much higher. And these are some charities that we are very excited about that are working directly on tackling poverty. So, some are working on tackling livelihoods. So Rory Stewart, who is going to be coming in the keynotes a bit later after lunch, he is actually a senior advisor to Give Directly. What they do is they literally provide cash to people living in extreme poverty. And that is actually shown to be way more effective than going there and like setting up some sort of like program, which tends to waste a lot of money. But if you just give people like the money to do what they know that they need to do with it, that can have way more impact. And he's going to talk about that a bit later. He also has a TED Talk that I would really recommend watching that TED Talk. He talks exactly about this problem. Village Enterprise, again, super effective charity working on livelihoods. There's also charities that are doing research into actually evaluating and comparing the most effective charities. So GiveWell, which maybe you've heard about, Happier Lives Institute. We have a talk tomorrow from Sam Dupre, who actually works at Happier Lives Institute as a researcher. And it's about what are the interventions that increase well-being the most in the world. And IPA, we also have someone talking from Innovations for Poverty Actions, I think either tomorrow or today, check swap card. But if you're interested in really effective interventions for poverty, definitely go to those two talks. Saving lives, obviously malaria kills so many lives, but by just providing malaria bed nets, that can save a lot of lives, and is a very cheap way to do so. Then we also have things that are more abstract. So charity entrepreneurship. In the organization fair later, I would really recommend you guys to go to, it's now called Ambitious Impact. So it's going to be Ambitious Impact. But basically what they do is they figure out what are some neglected areas that are still not being tackled and where can a charity really have an impact in that area. And they provide support, funding, mentorship. It's basically like a charity incubator where you can go and literally set up a charity working on a very, very important problem and have an impact in that problem. So strongly recommend that. Given what we can. So let's say if you don't you don't want to start a charity and you don't want to work directly on that problem, Giving What We Can essentially is a way to donate to the most effective charities. So they've already done all the research. They know what the most effective interventions are. And if you feel called to support through your money, then Giving What We Can is a very good source to do that. And you can read more about all of this. We have more information on the interventions. In every single one of the reports, we basically provide a list of what are the most effective interventions in those areas and how you can impact them with your career. Maybe take 5 minutes. You can even go scan this QR code to quickly check the reports of the problem profile that you are interested in, and just talk to the person next to you, what intervention seems to be most effective, maybe one that you didn't even consider before ever. So I'll just give you 5 minutes to do that. Maybe a bit less because we don't have a lot of time. Actually, sorry guys, we actually don't have, I just saw the time. So I would recommend if you can scan this QR code and maybe when you have some time, based on the problem that you've kind of figured out before, just go in and check in what the most effective interventions are. And yeah, maybe find someone on Swapcard who is maybe doing that and talk to them. And then, okay, so like, let's say now you know what problem you want to work on. You've done your research, you know what the most effective interventions are in that problem. Now, what we need to do is figuring out what the best roles, like what the best jobs to do that is, what skills do you need, maybe what experiences you need to get those skills, which is the next part of our model. So we have, this is, I'm not going to take credit for this, JD put this together and I think it's really cool. But we have a tale of two impact-driven Christians. The first one is Impact Sprinter. He has work. He has doing a lot of impact. Just think of like the most like workaholic, busy person that you can think of. That's him. But he does not have family, friends, relationships, physical health because he probably doesn't get any sleep. His mental health might be really struggling. Probably doesn't have any hobbies because there's no time to have hobbies if you're having all this impact in the world. And his prayer, worship life, going to church is really lacking as well because he doesn't have time to fit that into his busy schedule. So that is Impact Sprinter. Meet him 5 years later, and he is completely burnt out because he completely forgot to actually take care of some of the most sacred things in his life. Now, meet Impact Marathoner. This guy, he's got work. He's doing impact, maybe not the most impact, not as much impact as Impact Sprinter, but he's doing impact in his work. He has friends. He actually has friendships. He is having a prayer life. He's going to church because he has enough time to do that, and he's learned to incorporate that into his life. His physical health is good. His mental health is good. He might not have family and relationships yet, but if he has those things, I'm sure that one day God will provide. And, you know, a bit later, you see that he's actually still on the way to having an impact. Like, he hasn't burnt out. He is still doing amazing work. He's having a good life in all different areas of his life. And I think this is way more what the Bible recommends and encourages us to do. We know that the Christian faith is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Like, we literally have this whole life until we get to the finish line. 2 Timothy, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. It is literally a marathon. Having an impact is not supposed to be a sprint. So if you're here right now and maybe you're just starting your career, or maybe you're like mid-career, you've just had like a few years, and maybe you feel like you don't see the impact of your work. What you are doing, probably, you are gathering the skills and the experiences that you need to then later have a massive impact. And that is actually what happened to me. Like, for like 2 or 3 years of my life, after I finished uni, I gathered some skills that allowed me to have the job that I have now. Even though I'm not like an expert in these, I'm learning, but that gave me like a starting point. And so I think this is way more, this is how, as Christians, we want to think about this whole idea of having impact. Like, yes, impact is great, and we should aim to have it because we are on this earth, we have this one life that God has given us to impact as many people as possible. But also, we are called to keep the holy things in our lives sacred, to balance impact with relationships, with spending time with God, with taking care of our physical bodies, because we will have these bodies for the rest of our lives. And so I just want to note that as well, that it's not all about having impact, especially if it ends up kind of coming into your other areas of life. But if you want to know more about this, that's not me. Alex is another guy. There's a workshop that he is doing tomorrow. Alex Ratti is on the swap card, and you can sign up to that if you are feeling maybe like, how can I this is what it says. The work ahead feels heavy, but wasn't his burden meant to be light? Maybe you are feeling burdened by all of the big problems in this life, and you want to do something. I really recommend going to this workshop. He is very good at, he's led it before in our other conference. It's a very good workshop to go to. So yeah, so that is kind of interventions and roles and, wait, what did I say? Yeah, sorry, I'm like trying to get myself back. But then the next step is to identify impactful 5-year roles and work towards these roles. So I just want to give you a few examples of Christians who are actually working in very impactful roles and kind of like what they're doing. I already gave you this example of Liz. She has a podcast on our website where she literally explains her whole career journey, how she got to what she's doing now, and what advice she has for people who like want to follow a similar path. Well, you can't see that, but this is Graydon. I wish I could show you the picture. But essentially what he is focusing on is extreme poverty through maybe deworming pills, cash, the way that he's doing that, so problem, intervention, role. He is actually a management consultant, and he was a management consultant in the past, and now he's an investor. He earns a lot of money, probably more than I would ever earn in my life. But the way he's doing that, obviously his day-to-day job has no direct impact on extreme poverty. But because he's earning so much money, he is able to donate that money to the most effective charities. And this is what we call earning to give path. So earning as much money as you can to give away as much money as you can to the most effective interventions. And, you know, he has investment skills, financial mathematics, strategy, marketing, and he got this through his degree at Cambridge. He had an internship in consulting, and he also went to a mission trip to Tanzania, which probably showed him the need for this money to go to these places. And what we find is that if you really like sit down and think about your career, you either find that you need more skills. Why is this happening? Sorry, 1 second. Because these images are very important. So, 1 second. Yeah, here we go. That's Graydon, by the way. So you can, he's going to be at the conference, so you can talk to him about that if you are like maybe interested in the earning to give path. Yeah. So let's say another story, also illustrated by JD. Let's say that Vincent has a vision. He wants to save lives from malaria. And, you know, so he knows the problem that he wants to tackle. He knows that vaccines are like a really, really effective intervention. He even knows that, you know, being a marketer is going to help a lot because it's going to like build traction for this problem and get more people to donate to this. But he is lacking in skills and in experience. So he knows that he probably needs public speaking skills. He needs fundraising skills. He needs to know how to build a newsletter and do all of that. Maybe he needs a business degree. And the way he would get these is maybe doing like a Toastmasters where you can, you know, learn public speaking skills, working for a few companies to get these really like transferable skills, working maybe for a non-profit, doing an internship. So this is Vincent, and he knows that he just needs more skills. Whereas you could also find yourself in a place where you're like, I just need better vision. Sally has a lot of skills. She says, you know, she's basically successful in what she does, but her work is completely meaningless. She doesn't get to have any impact on one of these like really important problems. So, you know, what she has now is she's a marketer, let's say. She's very successful at what she does, but maybe she's a marketer for, I don't know, like a drink company that literally has no impact on anything. But she has the skills and she has the experience. And now she just needs the vision. How can I use the skills, the role, the resources that I have to actually impact a really big problem in the world? And she can figure out that she can work on one of the problems that we encourage and doing this intervention. So now what I would really love you to do, and this is very like, the point of this, is to draw out your own career model, maybe on a sheet of paper or maybe just on your phones, whatever you think. Literally just take 5 minutes now. It'll be going like a bit later, if that's okay. Maybe take like 2 minutes and just briefly write down. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just what you think at this point are the answers to these questions. What is your problem? The interventions that are best, the roles and the resources that you could do, the skills that you need, and the experiences that you could have to gain those skills. I'll just give you like 2 minutes to do that. Cool. I'm aware that some of you might have one-to-ones to go to, and lunch is happening as well. We don't have time to do this, but I really recommend, if you guys want to talk more about this, either come to me, book a call with JD, book a one-to-one call with Veza or JD, who can talk more about this plan. Closing thoughts, we have 3 paths that we normally recommend to everyone. First one is just build skills and career capital. So, kind of like that impact marathoner that we talked about earlier. You might be in a job that maybe doesn't have impact right now, but trust me, you are building something. Like nothing that you have right now that you are doing is going to be wasted. God can literally use that for such an amazing thing. So build skills and build career capital, even if it's working in a secular job that you literally do not care about. That can be one of the most impactful things that you can do now, especially. Work at an evidence-based charity. Maybe you already have skills. Maybe you already know how to build websites, how to, do marketing or whatever else that charities need. Go on our website, figure out what are the best charities that I can work in, and go and apply for them, or do a volunteering project for them if you can't get through a different way. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. Then the third one, earn to give, just like Graydon is doing. If you are, especially in finance, or in a consulting role, or in any role that has, potential for very high earnings, we would really recommend you to consider this as a normal path, as a path that you can take. For me personally, I would not be able to do this because I really need to kind of believe in what I'm enjoy what I'm doing as well. But there's loads of people who also enjoy working in these and enjoy giving money away as well. So those are the 3 that we recommend. So right now we've spent about an hour thinking about our careers. Here's what 1,000 hours look like. And I think this 1 hour spent, especially if you go ahead and pray about your career afterwards, you can really come up with a plan. And to be honest, I think we don't tend to think about our careers much. I don't know, but me personally, I'd never even spent this amount of time. I've spent time worrying about my career, but not actually putting a plan and researching. So I think this can be super useful. Form connections. Again, really recommend you to apply. You never know. You could have a life-transforming conversation that could really help you kind of figure out what the next step is, practical next step. And these are just a few stories of people who have gone through the mentorship process. So David, who is going to be here maybe tomorrow, he studied maths and he maybe wanted to start a charity. He needed prayer, relevant research, and networks. And so we connected him to this lovely man who I don't know the name of, but he has faith, he has experience, and he has connections. And so they did that. And now David is actually working in management consulting, and he's going via the earning to give career path. And that conversation really helped him to figure out what to do. Hannah, she really was passionate about working in tech, but she also wanted to do missions. She was interested in both, and they seem like such different things, and so she didn't know what to do exactly. So again, she needed prayer, she needed mission strategy and practical career advice. So we connected her to Ed Michelson, who is here. He is running the organization called 500K, and it's one of the most effective charities in terms of like church planting in unreached villages in India. So Ed really like helped her figure out what to do. And now she's kind of going towards more the tech side, and she maybe one day like she wants to support missions as well in other ways. And this is what they said. Max said, I met several wonderful people through CFI. It connected me to great research opportunities. Hannah, the experience overall was highly transformative. Now I plan to work in tech, upskill, and build career capital. I'm also keen to donate to effective mission charities and one day do full-time ministry. So yeah, thank you everyone. This is the end. I really hope it was useful for you guys. But if you had 2 minutes, could you please scan this QR code and be literally as honest as you can be by giving feedback about this workshop? Because this is a workshop that we might want to give to university students, people who really need some career advice. And we just basically want to know how to improve it and make it as good as it can be and as useful as it can be. So yeah, I'll just give you like 2 minutes to do that. And then I'm going to let you go. And I'm going to pray for you as well at the end, if that's okay. I would just love to pray for all of you right now, if that's okay. And then we can go and get lunch because I am so hungry. But yeah, Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this time that we had together. Lord, I pray for every single person sitting here right now. Lord, I pray that you would fill them with wisdom, that you would give them an actionable next step that they can take towards having a career that glorifies you, that is good for the world, that also allows them to have time for the really important things in their lives. Lord, I pray that you would provide every single person here with a divine connection throughout this conference that is sent by you, that they would talk to someone who can really take them to that next step. Thank you, Lord. I pray that you would bless them, that you would lead them and guide them into what you have for them. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. All right. Enjoy lunch, guys.